The accusation and sentencing. The grand halls of the Galactic Imperial Court loomed over Sarah Chen, its crystalline spires stretching impossibly high into the purple-tinged sky of Centauri Prime. She stood, hands bound by energy cuffs, alongside her four closest friends, Zara, Lena, Maya, and Kira. Their crime? Being human in an empire that had grown to despise Earth and its inhabitants. Sarah's mind raced, recalling the events that led to this moment. It had started with whispers, rumors of human insurgents causing trouble in the Outer Rim. Then came the propaganda, painting all humans as violent, unpredictable creatures. Before long, human rights were stripped away, one by one. Now, here they stood, 5 young women barely out of their teens, about to face judgment for crimes they didn't commit. The court doors slid open with a hiss, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with beings from 100 different worlds. At its center stood High Arbiter Xandor, a towering figure with iridescent scales and piercing yellow eyes. His voice boomed across the room, silencing the murmurs of the assembled crowd. "Bring forth the accused," he commanded. Sarah felt a rough shove from behind as a Praetorian guard propelled her forward. She stumbled, catching herself before she could fall. Zara, always the protective one, tried to reach out but was held back by another guard. Sarah Chen, Zara Novak, Lena Petrov, Maya Singh, and Kira Okoro. Xandor's voice dripped with disdain as he read their names. "You stand accused of sedition, conspiracy against the Empire, and attempted sabotage of critical Imperial infrastructure. How do you plead?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice steadier than she felt. "Not guilty, Your Honor. We've done nothing wrong." A ripple of laughter echoed through the chamber. Xandor's eyes narrowed. "Your guilt has already been determined, human. This proceeding is merely to decide your punishment." Shock and anger surged through Sarah. She opened her mouth to protest but felt Lena's hand on her arm, a silent warning to stay quiet. The trial, if it could be called that, was a farce. Evidence was presented, all of it fabricated. Witnesses testified, their stories clearly rehearsed. Throughout it all, Sarah and her friends stood in stunned silence, watching as their lives were torn apart by lies. As the proceedings drew to a close, Xandor raised a hand for silence. "The evidence against you is overwhelming. However, in its infinite mercy, the Empire has decided to be lenient. You will not be executed." A collective gasp of relief escaped the 5 women, but it was short-lived. Instead, Xandor continued, "You will be banished, exiled to Tartarus, a world on the very edge of known space. There you will live out your days, far from civilized society, where you can cause no further harm." Sarah's mind reeled. Tartarus. She had heard whispers of the place, a harsh, unforgiving world abandoned by the Empire centuries ago, a death sentence by another name. "This is injustice," Zara shouted, unable to contain herself any longer. "We demand a fair trial." Xandor's eyes flashed dangerously. "You are in no position to demand anything, human. Be grateful for the Empire's mercy. Guards, take them away. Their transport leaves immediately." As they were dragged from the courtroom, Sarah caught a glimpse of a figure in the shadows. Admiral Venn, the man who had orchestrated their downfall. His lips curled into a cruel smile as he watched them pass. The journey to the spaceport was a blur. Before Sarah could fully process what was happening, she and her friends were being herded onto a decrepit transport ship. Its hull was pitted and scarred, a far cry from the sleek Imperial vessels they were used to seeing. As the ship's engines roared to life, Sarah looked out a small viewport at the glittering spires of Centauri Prime. Tears stung her eyes as she realized this might be the last time she ever saw a civilized world. "What are we going to do?" Maya whispered, her voice trembling. Sarah turned to her friends, seeing the fear and uncertainty in their eyes. But beneath that, she saw something else: determination, strength. They had been wronged, but they weren't broken. We survive, Sarah said firmly. We adapt. And someday, somehow, we'll find a way to clear our names and come back. The Empire thinks they can break us, but they have no idea what humans are capable of. As the transport ship broke atmosphere and plunged into the inky blackness of space, Sarah felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. They were heading into the unknown, yes, but they were going together. And somehow, she knew that this was just the beginning of their story. The ship's ancient hyperdrive engaged with a shudder, stars blurring into streaks of light outside the viewport. Sarah and her friends huddled together in the cramped cargo hold, each lost in their own thoughts as they hurtled towards an uncertain future on a world none of them had ever heard of before today. Little did they know that their arrival on Tartarus would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the Galactic Empire. Arrival on the desolate world. The ancient transport ship shuddered violently as it entered Tartarus's atmosphere, waking Sarah from a fitful sleep. She blinked, disoriented, before the harsh reality of their situation came crashing back. They were exiles now, cast out by a corrupt empire to a world at the edge of known space. Brace for landing. A mechanical voice crackled over the ship's comm system. Tartarus surface approach in T-minus 60 seconds. Sarah looked around at her friends. Zara was gripping the safety harness so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Lena's eyes were closed, her lips moving in silent prayer. Maya and Kira clung to each other, fear evident on their faces. Whatever happens, Sarah said, her voice steady despite her own terror, we stick together. We're all we got now. The others nodded. A silent pact formed in the face of adversity. The ship hit the planet's surface with a bone-jarring impact. For a moment, everything was chaos. Alarms blaring, metal groaning, dust and debris filling the air. Then, stillness. With trembling hands, Sarah unbuckled her harness. Is everyone okay? A chorus of shaky affirmatives answered her. They were alive, at least. It was a start. The cargo bay door creaked open, letting in a gust of hot, dry air that carried the scent of dust and decay. Sarah stepped out first, blinking against the harsh sunlight of an alien world. Tartarus stretched out before them, a desolate landscape of rust-colored sand and jagged rock formations. Two suns blazed in a cloudless sky, their combined heat already making Sarah's skin prickle with sweat. In the distance, she could see the crumbling remains of what might have once been a city. Well, Zara said, coming to stand beside her, I guess this is home now. As if on cue, the transport ship's engines roared to life. Before any of them could react, it was lifting off, leaving them stranded on the barren surface of Tartarus. Hey, Kira shouted, waving her arms frantically. You can't just leave us here. But the ship was already disappearing into the sky, abandoning them to their fate. Maya sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. We're going to die here. No, we're not, Sarah said firmly, though her own heart was racing with fear. Look around. This planet was colonized once. There must be shelter, maybe even supplies left behind. We just need to find them. Lena, always the practical one, was already rummaging through the few bags they'd been allowed to bring. We have some water and emergency rations. If we're careful, they might last a week. Then we'd better start moving, Zara said, shielding her eyes as she scanned the horizon. That ruined city is our best bet. Ready for a hike, ladies? As they set off across the barren plain, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced back, half expecting to see Imperial drones monitoring their progress. But there was nothing, just endless stretches of red sand and rock. The trek to the ruins was grueling. By the time they reached the outskirts of what had once been a thriving metropolis, all 5 women were exhausted, their faces streaked with sweat and dust. Look at this place. Kira breathed, awe momentarily overriding her fear. It must have been incredible. The ruins rose around them, skeletal structures of metal and stone reaching towards the twin suns. Nature, or whatever passed for nature on this world, had begun to reclaim the city. Strange, vine-like growths with iridescent leaves crept up the sides of buildings. In the shadows, Sarah caught glimpses of quick, darting movements, some kind of local fauna, perhaps. "We need to find shelter before nightfall," Lena said, always focused on survival. Some of these buildings look stable enough. They chose a structure that might have once been an apartment complex. Its lower floors were relatively intact, offering protection from the elements and any potentially dangerous wildlife. As they settled in for their first night on Tartarus, Sarah found herself drawn to a window overlooking the ruined city. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in breathtaking shades of orange and purple. "It's beautiful, in a way," Maya said softly, coming to stand beside her. Sarah nodded. "Maybe this place isn't as bad as we thought. Tomorrow, we'll start exploring properly. There might be old tech we can salvage, maybe even a way to contact someone off-world." "And if there isn't?" Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sarah turned to her friend, determination burning in her eyes. "Then we make do. We adapt. We build something new here. The Empire thought they were sentencing us to death, but they underestimated us. We're human. Adapting is what we do best." As night fell on Tartarus, bringing with it a chorus of alien sounds from the world outside, Sarah and her friends huddled together in their makeshift shelter. They were afraid, yes, but there was also a spark of excitement, of possibility. This harsh world had been meant as their prison, but perhaps it could become something else, a fresh start, a chance to prove that humanity was more than the Empire's propaganda claimed. As Sarah drifted off to sleep, her mind was already racing with plans and possibilities. Little did they know that deep beneath the ruins of the ancient city, something was stirring, something that had lain dormant for centuries, waiting for the right moment, and the right people, to awaken it. The adventure on Tartarus was only just beginning. Survival and discovery. Weeks turned into months as Sarah and her friends fought to carve out an existence on Tartarus. Each day brought new challenges, but also new discoveries that hinted at the planet's mysterious past. Their first major breakthrough came when Lena, always tinkering with the remnants of technology they found in the ruins, managed to get an old atmospheric processor working. Suddenly, the air became easier to breathe, and the constant dust storms that had plagued them began to subside. "It's like the planet is coming back to life," Kira marveled one morning, pointing to small green shoots pushing up through the rusty soil near their shelter. Sarah nodded, a smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe we are too." They had all changed in their time on Tartarus. Gone were the soft hands and clean faces of their lives in the Empire. Now, they were lean and weathered, their skin tanned by the harsh suns, their muscles hardened by constant work. But the biggest changes were on the inside. A newfound resilience, a fierce determination to not just survive, but to thrive. Their explorations of the ruined city continued to yield surprises. In what seemed to have once been a research facility, they found data crystals containing fragments of the planet's history. Zara, who had always had a knack for languages, spent long hours deciphering the alien text. "From what I can piece together," she told the others one evening as they sat around a fire fueled by the bioluminescent fungi they discovered growing in the lower levels of the ruins. Tartarus wasn't always like this. It was a thriving world once, home to an advanced civilization. "What happened to them?" Maya asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Zara shook her head. "I'm not sure yet. There's mention of a great calamity, something about the heart of the world falling silent. After that, it seems like the planet just died." The implications of this discovery weighed heavily on all of them. If it had happened once, could it happen again? Were they living on borrowed time? But Sarah refused to give in to despair. "Whatever happened here, it was long ago. We're making this place livable again. We can learn from the past, use it to build a better future." Her words seemed prophetic when, a few days later, they made their most startling discovery yet. Deep beneath the city, In a chamber that looked like it had been deliberately sealed, they found something that defied explanation. A massive crystalline structure, pulsing with a faint inner light. "It's alive," Lena breathed, her hand hovering just above the crystal surface. "I can feel energy radiating from it." As if responding to her words, the crystal flared brightly. Suddenly, the chamber was filled with holographic projections, star charts, schematics, and streams of data in an alien language. "This must be it," Zara said excitedly. "The heart of the world. It's some kind of incredibly advanced computer, maybe even an artificial intelligence." Sarah felt a mixture of awe and trepidation as she gazed at the pulsing crystal. "Can you communicate with it, Zara?" Zara nodded slowly, her fingers dancing over a control panel they had previously thought was dead. I think so. It's like it's been waiting for someone to find it." Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly to understand the crystal and the wealth of knowledge it contained. What they learned was staggering. Tartarus had once been at the center of a vast network of worlds, linked by technology far beyond anything the Galactic Empire possessed. The crystal was the key to it all, a repository of knowledge and a control center for systems that spanned the galaxy. "We could use this to contact Earth," Maya said, hope shining in her eyes. "Let everyone know we're alive, expose the Empire's lies." But Sarah was thinking bigger. "We could do more than that. With this technology, we could challenge the Empire itself. Show the galaxy that there's a better way than their tyranny." The others looked at her, a mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. They had come to Tartarus as exiles, condemned by a corrupt system. Now they stood on the precipice of becoming something more. Revolutionaries, the spark that could ignite change across the stars. As they debated their next move, none of them noticed the small Imperial probe droid that had been silently observing them, transmitting everything back to its masters light years away. The Empire, it seemed, had not forgotten about its exiles after all. In the grand halls of the Imperial Palace on Centauri Prime, Admiral Venn watched the transmission from Tartarus with growing alarm. "Impossible," he muttered. "That world was supposed to be dead." But the evidence was undeniable. Not only had the human exiles survived, but they had unlocked secrets that could upset the balance of power in the galaxy. Venn's mind raced with the implications. If this information got out, if other worlds learned that there was technology that could free them from dependence on the Empire. He turned to his aide, his voice cold with determination. "Prepare my ship, and alert the Imperial Guard. It's time we dealt with these troublesome humans once and for all." Back on Tartarus, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering light years away, the rise of a new society. As weeks turned into months, Sarah and her friends worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of the crystal and the ancient technology of Tartarus. With each passing day, their understanding grew, and with it, their ability to reshape the desolate world around them. The first major breakthrough came when Lena, combining her engineering skills with the knowledge gleaned from the crystal, managed to reactivate the planet's long-dormant terraforming systems. Almost overnight, the landscape began to change. The rust-colored sand gave way to rich, dark soil. Streams of clean water burst forth from underground aquifers, forming rivers and lakes where before there had been only dust. "It's like watching the planet come back to life," Maya marveled one morning, as they stood atop a hill overlooking the newly formed valley. Green shoots were already pushing up through the soil, the first plants Tartarus had seen in centuries. Sarah nodded, a sense of pride and accomplishment washing over her. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're thriving." As Tartarus bloomed, so did their ambitions. Using the advanced communication technology they'd discovered, they began reaching out to other worlds, not the core systems controlled by the Empire, but the forgotten planets on the fringes, places populated by those who had fallen through the cracks of Imperial society. To their surprise and delight, they found allies, other exiles, refugees and dissidents who had long dreamed of challenging the Empire but lacked the means to do so. Sarah and her friends offered them hope, and more importantly, a place to call home. Ships began arriving on Tartarus. At first just a trickle, then a steady stream. The ruins of the ancient city were slowly repopulated, this time with a diverse mix of species from across the galaxy. Humans worked alongside Xenovians, Altarians, and a dozen other races, all united in their desire to build something new, something better than what the Empire offered. Zara, with her gift for languages and diplomacy, became the de facto ambassador of their fledgling society. She worked tirelessly to mediate disputes and forge alliances, ensuring that the mistakes of the past, the prejudices and conflicts that had allowed the Empire to rise to power, were not repeated. Kira's empathy and caring nature made her a natural leader in healthcare. She established clinics throughout the growing settlements, combining the best of the medical knowledge they'd brought from their old lives with the advanced healing technologies they were discovering in the ruins. Maya, always fascinated by the natural world, threw herself into studying Tartarus's reawakening ecosystem. She led expeditions into the wilderness, cataloging new species and working to ensure that their growing civilization lived in harmony with the planet's rebirth. Lena continued to push the boundaries of what was possible with the ancient technology. Under her guidance, they built clean energy systems, advanced transportation networks, and defenses that could rival anything the Empire possessed. And Sarah, she found herself at the center of it all, the reluctant but natural leader of their burgeoning civilization. She worked tirelessly, coordinating their efforts, making the hard decisions, and always pushing them to look to the future. Lena continued to push the boundaries of what was possible with the ancient technology. Under her guidance, they built clean energy systems, advanced transportation networks, and defenses that could rival anything the Empire possessed. And Sarah, she found herself at the center of it all, the reluctant but natural leader of their burgeoning civilization. She worked tirelessly, coordinating their efforts, making the hard decisions, and always pushing them to look to the future. "We have a chance here," she often said in council meetings, "to build the kind of society we always dreamed of, one based on equality, justice, and the fundamental dignity of all sentient beings. We can't afford to waste it." Confrontation with the Empire. The twin suns of Tartarus rose on a day unlike any other in the planet's long history. The air thrummed with tension as the inhabitants of the once-dead world prepared for the coming storm. In orbit, a hastily assembled fleet of ships from a dozen different worlds stood ready, a testament to the alliances Sarah and her friends had forged. On the bridge of the flagship, a refitted cruiser they'd salvaged from the ruins and christened Phoenix, Sarah stood with her 4 friends, watching the tactical display with a mixture of determination and barely concealed anxiety. Imperial fleet dropping out of hyperspace, Lena reported, her fingers dancing over the controls. 5 dreadnoughts, at least 20 support ships. They're not here to negotiate. Sarah nodded grimly. We knew this day would come. Are our defenses ready? Zara stepped forward, her face set with resolve. The planetary shield is at full power. Ground-based ion cannons are primed and ready, and our allies are in position. For a moment, Sarah's mind flashed back to that day in the Imperial Court when they had been sentenced to exile. How far they had come since then, from powerless prisoners to the leaders of a resistance that spanned the galaxy. A comm channel crackled to life, and the sneering face of Admiral Venn appeared on the main view screen. Attention, rebels and traitors. This is your first and only warning. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the man who had orchestrated their exile. Admiral Venn, we will not surrender. We have built something here on Tartarus that's worth fighting for. A society based on freedom and equality, not tyranny and oppression. If you want this world, you'll have to take it from us. Venn's face contorted with rage. So be it. You will serve as an example to any who dare defy the Empire. The transmission cut off abruptly. Here they come, Maya said softly, watching as the Imperial ships began their advance. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations to come. Imperial forces hammered at the planetary shields while fighters clashed in the space above Tartarus. On the ground, drop ships managed to penetrate the defenses, leading to fierce skirmishes in the streets of the city. But the defenders of Tartarus had advantages the Empire couldn't have anticipated. The reactivated planetary defense systems, guided by the ancient AI they'd awakened, proved devastatingly effective against the Imperial ships, and the diverse coalition Sarah had built fought with a passion and creativity that the rigid Imperial forces struggled to match. Hours stretched into days as the battle raged on. Sarah and her friends were everywhere, coordinating defenses, rallying troops, and even joining the fight themselves when needed. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to give up now. The turning point came on the third day of fighting. Lena, working feverishly with a team of engineers, managed to adapt the planet's terraforming technology into a weapon. With a blinding flash of energy, the largest Imperial dreadnought was enveloped in a field that rapidly altered its molecular structure, transforming the mighty warship into harmless particles. It worked. Lena shouted, her voice hoarse with exhaustion and exhilaration. The loss of their flagship threw the Imperial forces into disarray. Sensing the shift in momentum, Sarah ordered a counterattack. Rebel ships surged forward, targeting the suddenly vulnerable Imperial fleet. On the ground, Kira led a daring assault on the Imperial command post, using her knowledge of the city's hidden tunnels to outflank the enemy. Maya's understanding of the planet's newly awakened ecosystem proved crucial, as she coordinated with native life forms to disrupt Imperial operations. Zara's voice rang out across all channels, broadcasting a message to every ship and outpost in the sector. The Empire is not invincible. Join us. Fight for your freedom. As the battle entered its final hours, Sarah found herself face to face with Admiral Ven, the Imperial leader. His uniform torn and dirty, had been cornered in the ruins of an ancient temple. "It's over, Admiral," Sarah said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Your fleet is in retreat. Your ground forces have surrendered. End this now." Ven's face twisted with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "How?" He spat. "You were nothing. Exiles. Criminals. How could you have done this?" Sarah smiled sadly. "Because you never understood what makes humanity, what makes all free people truly strong. It's not obedience or fear. It's hope, creativity, the ability to adapt and work together. You gave us a dead world and thought it would break us. Instead, it gave us the chance to build something better." With a cry of fury, Ven lunged at her, drawing a hidden blade. But Sarah was ready. In a move that would have surprised her younger self, she deftly disarmed the Admiral, sending him sprawling to the ground. As Imperial supporters across the sector watched their forces retreat from Tartarus, the unthinkable happened. Inspired by the victory of the once powerless exiles, other worlds began to rise up. The monolithic facade of the Empire began to crack. In the days that followed, as the inhabitants of Tartarus began the work of rebuilding, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Offers of alliance, pleas for help, expressions of hope from worlds long oppressed. Sarah stood with her 4 friends atop the highest tower of the city, watching ships land in a steady stream, refugees, allies, and envoys from 100 worlds. "So," Zara said, a hint of wonder in her voice, "what do we do now?" Sarah looked out at the horizon, where the twin suns of Tartarus were setting in a blaze of color. "Now," she said, "we build, we heal. We show the galaxy that there's a better way than empire and oppression. We've won a battle, but the real work is just beginning." As night fell on Tartarus, the 5 friends who had arrived as exiles and become leaders of a revolution stood together, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. They had been banished to a dead world, but in doing so, the Empire had sown the seeds of its own destruction and given birth to a new hope for the galaxy. The story of Tartarus, of 5 human girls who defied an empire, would be told for generations to come. But for Sarah, Zara, Lena, Maya, and Kira. It wasn't about becoming legends. It was about building a future where no one would ever again be exiled or oppressed for daring to dream of freedom. As the stars came out, twinkling in the night sky of their reborn world, they knew that their greatest adventures still lay ahead.